It's still in the conversation because of ongoing work on the hub, tokenomics discussions, ecosystem updates, and the simple fact that Cosmos remains one of the longest standing interoperability focused networks even after years of underperformance relative to other L1s. If this is useful, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment with your honest take on Atom. I actually read them. Looking at ratings and signals, a lot of the technical scanners and community sentiment have leaned cautious to outright negative for an extended period. You'll see a mix of hold and sell readings, especially from tools that track the longer term trend and the position relative to key moving averages. Funding and open interest in the derivatives markets have flipped around, but the short term outlook from pure chart based sources remains defensive until price can reclaim and hold above recent resistance levels with convincing volume. There is more coverage for Cosmos than for lower ranked names, but the consensus from technical and sentiment tools has stayed measured rather than strongly bullish. What's going on with Cosmos right now? The chart has been grinding lower for a long stretch, sell pressure has been persistent, and yet you'll still hear people arguing this thing is somehow undervalued at these levels. How do those two views even sit together? Let's talk about it. Cosmos is the native token of the Cosmos Hub, the central chain in an ecosystem designed for interoperable blockchains using the inter-blockchain communication protocol. Atom is used for staking to secure the hub, participating in governance, and underpins activity across a network of connected chains. The project has long focused on modularity, sovereignty for individual chains, and cross chain communication. It currently ranks around the top 60 to 70 by market cap, with a circulating supply in the low hundreds of millions, and the price has been trading near the levels you're seeing after a multi-year decline from its all-time high. On the technical side, the bigger picture remains a clear long-term downtrend from the much higher levels of previous cycles. Price has spent extended periods making lower highs and lower lows, with recent action testing support near multi-month and multi-year lows. Short-term bounces have occurred but have consistently failed to reverse the larger structure. Momentum indicators have been mixed to weak on the higher time frames, often hovering in neutral to oversold territory without producing strong sustained recoveries. Moving averages on the daily and weekly still lean bearish, and volume has been relatively subdued outside of occasional spikes. Short term, it feels more like a weak consolidation or bounce inside a larger corrective structure than a clean trend reversal. You can argue there is some resilience when price holds the recent lows, but the overall structure still looks heavy. That's the classic trap setup. The technology is real, the ecosystem continues to exist, but the market keeps assigning it a lower valuation while attention stays elsewhere. Retail often gets caught here, buying the undervalued infrastructure play narrative while the larger trend remains downward or sideways. Here's the real debate. Is Atom actually undervalued at these levels, or is this a value trap after years of relative underperformance? One side points to the technology behind interchain communication, the established ecosystem of connected chains, the ongoing work on hub upgrades and tokenomics, the staking utility, and the significant distance from previous cycle highs. They argue that if capital rotates back into interoperability narratives, or if the hub can capture more value from the broader ecosystem, these levels could look reasonable in hindsight. The other side says look at the chart and the relative performance. Many competing networks have captured more mindshare, developers, and capital over the same period. Volume and momentum have been soft for long stretches, and the market has consistently treated Atom as a lower priority name despite the foundational role of the hub. Short term, the picture still looks more consolidative and reactive than impulsive. You need to see stronger volume and a clean break of the recent resistance cluster before the short term bias flips with any real confidence. confidence. Longer term, it comes down to whether the Cosmos Hub can convert its interoperability foundation into sustained demand and relative outperformance for Atom. That's the only path that turns these levels into something more constructive instead of just another extended consolidation or grind lower. Nobody knows which way this resolves. The chart is still fighting the technology narrative, the project continues to develop, and the market remains selective about which infrastructure stories it rewards. So the real question is simple. Is this the kind of project that can finally break out of its long underperformance and re-rate higher, or are we just watching another established L1 settle into a prolonged period of low relative interest while people argue about valuation? Risks are meaningful, volatility is still present. A broader risk of move in crypto or continued rotation away from mid-tier L1s and interoperability stories can pressure the price further. Downside remains open if the recent support zone breaks and the downtrend simply continues. Retail traders love the long-term technology and interoperability will matter story and end up holding through multi-month or multi-year underperformance. Liquidity is better than microcaps but still thinner than the very top names, so larger moves can still happen quickly. There's also the competitive risk that comes with any L1 ecosystem. Newer or more narrative-driven chains can continue to pull capital and developers away. Bull case versus bear case is fairly clear. Best case, broader market risk appetite returns. The Cosmos Hub shows measurable progress on value capture or usage. Tokenomics adjustments land constructively and price manages to reclaim key resistance levels and start building a higher base. In that scenario, you could see a meaningful recovery toward previous intermediate highs over a longer horizon. Worst case is the opposite. Volume stays muted, relative performance continues to lag, and the downtrend simply grinds lower toward new cycle lows. In that scenario, the undervalued talk just becomes background noise while price continues to underperform.